What on earth is off-road skating? People flying down mountain trails, tearing across gravel paths, hammering it down grassy hills, even skating through the snow. And someone actually crossed the Sahara Desert. In today's video, we're going to explore the adventurous world of off-road skating. All the stunts are performed by professionals. Do not attempt this yourself. It was way back in the 1700s when the first inline skate appeared after a Dutchman attached wooden spools to a strip of wood and then nailed it to his shoes. A very crass but effective way to get them on there, and inline skating started. Skipping forward in time to 1819 and Paris, M. Petitblade patterned the first roller skate. The wheels were all in a line, but they were still calling it a roller skate. Over the centuries, people experimented with various intriguing looking iterations. I mean, they had it all going on. Some looked like they were rolling around on cheese wheels, and others took a quite literal approach to getting wheels under their shoes.
You what?
Interestingly, rollerblading had a bit of an air of sophistication about it. I wonder if we'd be viewed differently these days if we all went round suited and booted. In the 1960s, things started to really come together and we got the Chicago, the first ever patent using the term inline skate, and a much closer example of a modern skate. Fast forward to the 80s, Prince was still called Prince. Having big hair was big. People were struggling to solve Rubik's Cube, and hockey enthusiasts Scott and Brennan Olson were also struggling to find a way to do ice hockey training out of season. That wasn't until they went rummaging around their local sports store and discovered the Chicago inline skate. The turbo granny looking contraption was the ideal base for them to start from, and with a little bit of tinkering around in the lab, they came up with the ideal inline skate.
And everything's the same except for the ice surface.
Oh, and a very catchy brand name, Rollerblade. The skate caught on, and in 1986 the rollerblading industry was bringing in around $7 million. But when matey boy Robert Naegele arrived on the scene with his pearly white gnashers and business brain, things really started to take off. Rollerblading went absolutely everywhere. You couldn't escape it. It was in films, it was on MTV, and by 1994 it was making $650 million. Now at the time it was mostly done for fitness and recreation, skating down nice smooth paved paths like cycle tracks or the Venice Beach Broadwalk. It wouldn't have been completely out of place to see somebody clad in neon with leg warmers on. But people were already starting to push it in other directions to see how far they could go with it. Aggressive skating is an obvious example. People were doing tricks like airs and grinds, but there was another group of people who wanted to challenge where you could skate, and there was examples of this being done in the past as well. Around the mid-1930s, the first roller skis were built in Italy and Northern Europe. Despite the things looking completely hazardous, by the 1950s it had become somewhat of a craze. Cross-country skiing had become really popular and had evolved into a serious competition sport.
Today it's cross-country skiing and 70-meter ski jumping at the World Nordic Skiing Championships.
And people wanted a way to continue the training into the summer. Roller skiing was the perfect solution, and this then evolved into grass skiing. There's an amazing section in Warren Miller's 1984 classic, Ski Country. It shows some unreal and equally hilarious grass skiing action. It does look like a great laugh, and it wasn't just a fad. It's continued to develop and there's legit official competitions. Can you believe somebody's actually done a backflip on these things? Wild. And although these devices were much closer to skis, well, they actually kind of looked like army tanks. It showed that there was potential there, and the same could be done for inline skates. So Rollerblade stepped in and created the Coyote in 1997, making them one of the pioneers of off-road inline skates. It differed from ski-style skates and was much closer to a regular inline skate. It had 3 big air-filled wheels, a braking system, aluminium frame, and a hard boot with a really high cuff. Rocies were also early pioneers when they came out with the big cap, which more closely resembled the ski approach. Between the two brands, people could start to enjoy off-road skating and explore more rougher terrains. They were no longer limited to traditional smooth pavements. And off they went, testing the skates to the limits. It generated a little bit of interest and a bit of an audience. I mean, people were even trying it out with motorised wheels to get a bit of an extra boost.
Yeah, dude.
But it wasn't actually that popular, and it kind of got forgotten about for like over a decade. That was around about until 2010 when Powerslide dropped their Nordic line of inline skates. The majority of the skates were more roller ski-like design, but they also had a more skate-like design with 3 wheels. These skates were named SUV, and the first ones came with 3 125mm wheels and a Metropolis or Imperial hard boot. A big difference from the Rollerblade Coyote was that it wasn't a unique frame attachment. They could go on any boot with a 165mm spacing mount, so it meant there was much more options for people. Off-road skating, also known as off-road inline skating or all-terrain skating, was about stepping away from the traditional skating environment and hitting more challenging terrains like dirt trails, gravel paths, grassy fields, and even rocky or sandy places. They could pretty much handle anything, which opened up a whole host of opportunity. No regular skate would allow you to do this. I mean, you could try, but it'd be like trying to skate through bread. The skates were a serious bit of kit. They had much larger wheels and more rugged frames compared to standard inline skates. The wheels are typically wider as well to provide better stability, traction and shock absorption from uneven surfaces. The frames are often made from durable materials like aluminium or carbon fibre to withstand the demands of off-road skating. There are varying setups you can go for depending on the experience of the user and what you want to get out of it. You can use 2 wheels, which provides a much lighter setup, less rolling resistance, but only 2 contact points, so you'll have to lift your legs while turning, and not great stability, so best used on beaten, forest paths, or not very demanding off-road tracks. 3 wheels gives you better grip and shock dampening, and a better roll on rough terrain. You can vary the size of the wheels as well. The bigger wheel is going to take more energy and be more demanding on the user, but you'll be able to skate over almost anything. Like a tank. It's great getting outside on the skates, keeping active, getting a little bit of fresh air in the lungs. But how much fresh air are you really getting skating in the city? If you're into the video, you can really help us out by giving us a like. I've also got merch, it's a great way to support me. I have a Patreon page, and there's also a channel membership you can get into for exclusive videos, sneak peeks, that kind of thing. All really helps me out. Cheers! The real fun and the real fresh air begins when you leave the city. Off-road skating is all about the adventure and experience nature in a unique way. Off-road skaters started taking on forest trails normally used by hikers, testing themselves on mountain bike paths. It's taken people to the farthest reaches of the globe, unique places of such natural wonder and beauty. You're definitely not really going to experience them in your local city. I mean, Johan Kamberlive travelled 5,000 kilometres on off-road inline skates from Madrid to Dakar, crossing the Sahara Desert, Spain, Morocco and Senegal. Leandre Fabry recently travelled to the visually captivating Canyon du Diable in France and filmed a jaw-dropping edit. Watching him navigate the terrain, carving up and down the slopes, sometimes on the edge of sheer drops, is unreal. He even threw in a cheeky backflip. You don't have to travel to remote places or miles out of your comfort zone. Sam Cross found places to skate in parks and green areas around London, and the results were amazing. People have used more commonly seen pump tracks, which has highlighted the versatility of the skates, so more people took to using whole dirt parks made for BMX or making their own. This has also seen the start of people throwing out tricks like spins and flips, and more increasingly you can find whole edits of skaters tearing it around these tracks and parks. A notable figure in off-road skating is Dustin Werbeski.
This is the biggest and fastest you will ever skate.
He's been a fearless explorer of off-road skating. He's like rollerblading Jacques Cousteau. Coming from an aggressive skating background and always being fond of creative, experimental skating, he naturally started to experiment with a bigger wheel setup. This allowed him to skate more on common obstacles, which drove his passion for skating unusual terrain. So the off-road skates with tyres was the next logical move for him.
Who knew that you could skate that stuff until I found out about air-filled tires, and I was like, whoa. Always thought about those wood ladders in the mountains, and all of a sudden it was just all possible. So
his adventures into off-road skating have gained a lot of attention. One of his most popular videos has close to 900,000 views and sees him skating the North Shore in Vancouver, Canada. taking on dirt trails and wooden mountain biking paths at frightening speed. It's a wild watch and unbelievable what he's managed to achieve. His edits are a great example of the various terrains you can skate with the right equipment. He's been skating in the mountains, through the Yellowstone National Park, skating past geysers and buffalo, the middle of nowhere in Canada, with some of the most beautiful backdrops you'll ever see. Imagine all those stunning places, those beautiful walks, those natural trails through the wilderness. Now imagine doing it on inline skates, hurtling through it, adrenaline pumping through you. That's exactly what he's doing. He also recently received the first ever pro model off-road inline skate, and the promo is exceptional. It sees him skating the Finley Falls Trail in British Columbia, Canada, carving around the paths, skating on falling trees next to the creek and exploring the environment. A stark difference from a skate park. I do wonder what he does though if he gets a flat tyre, but they're small enough I suppose you could just like carry a few of them on your back as if it was a tyre in the boot. He's definitely been a key figure in promoting off-road skating and showing what can be done with it, but there are other people all over the world exploring their areas as well and showing these different environments. Off-road skating allows its participants to get out into the thick of nature and traverse through picturesque landscapes at thrilling speeds. It has lots of potential that is far from being fully recognised, not just in terms of where you can go, but what manoeuvres can be done using the skate and the environment.
I want to see a competition on just 3 dirt jumps. Classic BMX free ride competition. Just give us like 3 big booters in a row. You got to try it on the dirt. It's so much different.
Once there's competition and you start to see people challenging each other, that's when you see the progression, and it happens really quickly. Who knows where off-road inline skating could go?
These pigs have a long snout, a long wheelbase that acts as a lever on stairs.
It's definitely going to be an exciting thing to watch, if not just for the scenery. Do you fancy having a go at off-road inline skating? Massive thank you to my Patreons. Without your support I simply couldn't do this. Here's a couple of other videos you can watch, and I'll catch you again soon. Spotty Dog.